The transport ship landed on Prime just as the twin suns began to set. The sky turned purple and orange, and the massive buildings of the Galactic Coalition Academy caught the fading light like towers of glass and steel. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. And for Specialist, it was supposed to be home for the next 2 years. She stepped off the ship with her single duffel bag over her shoulder. The air was thin here, about 80% of what she was used to on Earth, but her lungs had already started adjusting during the 3-week journey. Humans were good at that, adjusting, surviving. It was pretty much the only thing they were known for in the galaxy. An officer was waiting for her at the landing pad. He stood nearly 2.5 meters tall, with smooth blue skin and 4 arms folded across his chest. His eyes, large and golden, looked down at her with something between curiosity and disappointment. "You are the human," he said. It was not a question. "Specialist, reporting for combat training assignment," she replied, keeping her voice steady and professional. They made a sound in his throat. It might have been a laugh. "I am Lieutenant. I will take you to processing. Try to keep up." He turned and walked away without waiting for her response. His 4 legs carried him quickly across the platform and had to jog to match his pace. She did not complain. She had learned a long time ago that complaining changed nothing. The academy was even larger up close. Thousands of cadets from dozens of species trained here, learning combat techniques, military strategy, and the art of war. The Galactic Coalition had been at peace for nearly a century, but peace was fragile. Everyone knew that. So they trained, they prepared, and they sent their best into Prime. Was Earth's first representative. The humans had only joined the coalition 12 years ago, after making first contact with a trading vessel. In galactic terms, humanity was a baby species, barely out of its cradle. Most of the coalition still thought of humans as curious primitives who had somehow stumbled into faster-than-light travel by accident. They were not entirely wrong about the accident part. The processing hall was a massive circular room filled with holographic displays and administrative stations. Cadets from various species moved through the space, collecting their assignments and dormitory information. Noticed that many of them stopped to stare at her as she passed. She heard whispers in languages her translator could not fully interpret. Lieutenant handed her a data pad. "Your quarters are in Block 7. Your training schedule begins tomorrow at first light. Do not be late. The instructors here do not tolerate human weakness." "I understand," said. "Do you?" Leaned closer, his golden eyes narrowing. "You are here because the Coalition Council demanded it. A gesture of inclusion, they called it. But this academy has produced the finest warriors in the galaxy for 300 years. We did not achieve that by lowering our standards." Met his gaze without flinching. "I am not asking you to lower anything, sir." For a moment something flickered in this expression. Surprise, perhaps. Then it was gone, replaced by cold professionalism. "Block 7, do not be late." He walked away and was alone. She found her quarters after getting lost twice. The corridors of the academy were designed for species with different sensory abilities, and the signs were not always easy for human eyes to read. But she figured it out eventually. She always did. Her room was small but clean. A bed that was slightly too long for her. A desk with a built-in computer terminal. A window that looked out over the training grounds below. She could see cadets sparring in the fading light, their movements fast and powerful. She recognized some of the species from her briefings. They with their 4 arms and lightning-fast reflexes. The whose bodies were covered in natural armor that could stop a blade. The thin and graceful, who could read minds and predict their opponents' movements before they made them. And then there was her, 2 arms, soft skin. No claws, no armor, no psychic powers. Just a human body that had evolved on a planet full of things trying to kill it. She sat on her bed and opened her duffel bag. Inside, wrapped in cloth, was a photograph of her grandmother. Abuela had been a soldier too, back on Earth, before the first contact. She had fought in 3 wars and survived all of them. When told her she was going to the academy, Abuela had smiled and said something we'd never forget. They will underestimate you. Let them. It is the greatest advantage you will ever have. Placed the photograph on her desk and looked out the window again. The cadets below had finished their sparring. They were laughing and talking, moving in groups toward the dormitories. None of them looked up at her window. None of them knew she was watching. Tomorrow, everything would begin. She would walk into the training halls and face opponents who were faster, stronger, and more naturally gifted than she could ever be. They would look at her and see a fragile creature from a primitive world. They would wonder why she was even there. And she would show them. Not with words. Words meant nothing here. Words were air and sound and empty promises. She would show them with action, with endurance, with the stubborn refusal to break that had kept her species alive for 300,000 years on a planet that should have killed them. Humans were not the fastest. They were not the strongest. They did not have armor or claws or telepathy. But they had something else. Something that could not be measured, or a fire that burned inside them, passed down from ancestor to ancestor, from the first human who had picked up a rock to defend their family to the last soldier standing on a battlefield. Lay back on her bed and closed her eyes. She thought about her grandmother. She thought about Earth. She thought about all the people who had told her she was not good enough, not strong enough, not worthy enough to be here. Tomorrow, she would start proving them wrong. One day at a time, one fight at a time, one breath at a time. She slept without dreams, her body already conserving energy for the challenges ahead. Outside her window, the twin suns finally disappeared below the horizon, and the academy fell into darkness. But was not afraid of the dark. She had grown up in it. 3 weeks passed, and had not sparred with a single opponent. It was not because she had not tried. Every morning she submitted her sparring requests through the academy's training system. She selected opponents from her skill level. She followed all the proper procedures, and every morning within minutes the requests came back declined. The reasons were always the same: physiological incompatibility, safety concerns, scheduling conflicts, pretty words that all meant the same thing. Nobody wanted to fight the human. Stood in the combat gymnasium, alone, as she had been for the past 3 weeks. The space was enormous, with multiple sparring rings, training drones, and weapons racks lining the walls. During peak hours, it was filled with cadets from every species, practicing their techniques and challenging each other to matches. But whenever entered, the room seemed to empty. Cadets would suddenly remember appointments. Training sessions would end early. Partners would be found elsewhere. She had stopped taking it personally. She could not afford to. Instead, she trained alone. She ran through forms that her instructors back on Earth had taught her. Techniques from a dozen different martial arts passed down through centuries of human conflict. Maga, designed for close combat and survival. Thai, using elbows and knees as weapons. Brazilian, turning an opponent's strength against them. Boxing, wrestling, judo, silat. Her species had spent thousands of years learning how to hurt each other. It was not something to be proud of exactly, but it was useful. The gymnasium door opened and paused mid-strike. She expected another cadet who would see her and suddenly remember somewhere else they needed to be. Instead, she saw a massive figure in instructor's robes, missing one of his compound eyes. Instructor. He was the senior combat instructor at the academy, a veteran of the border wars who had killed more enemies than most cadets had ever seen. His exoskeleton was dark gray, cracked in places where old wounds had healed imperfectly. When he walked, his armored feet clicked against the floor like stones striking metal. "Specialist," he said. His voice was deep and rough, like gravel sliding through a pipe. Instructor stood at attention. At ease. He moved closer, his remaining eye studying her with cold interest. "I have been reviewing your training records. You have logged 0 sparring hours in 3 weeks. This is unacceptable." "Yes, sir. I have submitted 37 sparring requests. All have been declined." "I am aware," made a clicking sound with his mandibles. It was an expression of frustration. "The cadets cite physiological incompatibility. They claim they cannot safely engage you in combat without risking serious injury." "To themselves, sir." "To you," I fixed on her. "They believe you are fragile, specialist. They look at your soft skin and your thin bones and they see a creature that will shatter at the first real impact. They do not wish to be responsible for killing the Coalition's first human cadet." Said nothing. There was nothing to say. "I have seen your species' military files," continued. "There are reports from the frontier wars, stories of humans performing feats that should be impossible, soldiers continuing to fight after wounds that would kill any other species, prisoners surviving conditions designed to break them within hours." He paused. "I do not know if these reports are accurate. They seem exaggerated." "They are not exaggerated, sir." "Then prove it," gestured toward the empty sparring rings. "Words are meaningless here. Reports are meaningless. The only thing that matters is what you can demonstrate. Until you show these cadets what humans are capable of, they will continue to see you as prey." "I cannot demonstrate if no one will face me, sir." "Then find another way," turned and walked toward the door. He paused at the threshold and looked back at her. "The monthly exhibition matches are in 4 days. Every cadet attends. Every instructor watches. It is the perfect opportunity to make a statement." His mandibles clicked again. "If you are truly what your files suggest, specialist, then show us. If not, perhaps it is time to accept that you do not belong here." He left. The door closed behind him with a soft hiss. Stood alone in the empty gymnasium. Her hands were trembling slightly, not from fear but from anger. 3 weeks of isolation. 3 weeks of being treated like glass. 3 weeks of proving nothing to anyone. She walked to the nearest training drone and activated it. The machine hummed to life, its sensors tracking her movement, its striking arms extending into combat position. She set it to intermediate difficulty and settled into a fighting stance. The drone attacked. She blocked, deflected, countered. Her movements were precise and economical, wasting no energy. The drone struck again and again, and she absorbed each blow, redirected each impact, turned each attack into an opportunity. She trained until her muscles burned. She trained until sweat soaked through her uniform. She trained until the lights in the gymnasium automatically dimmed for the evening cycle. And then she trained some more. 4 days. She had 4 days to figure out how to make an entire academy see her differently. 4 days to prove that humans were not fragile prey to be protected, and 4 days to change everything. She thought about instructors' words, "Find another way." An idea began to form in her mind. It was crazy. It was dangerous. It might get her expelled from the academy or worse. But it would definitely make a statement. Deactivated the training drone and walked to the computer terminal on the wall. She pulled up the exhibition match schedule and scrolled through the list of demonstrations. Combat techniques, weapons displays, defensive formations. She found the registration form and began to type. Her fingers hesitated over the submit button. If this failed, she would prove every doubter right. She would confirm every assumption they had made about human weakness. She would become a joke, a cautionary tale about why primitive species should stay on their primitive worlds. But if it worked, press submit. The confirmation appeared on screen. Her demonstration was scheduled for the exhibition's final hour. All instructors, all cadets required to attend. She smiled, and there was nothing soft about it. In 4 days, the academy would learn what humans were made of. One way or another. The exhibition hall was packed. Thousands of cadets filled the stands, their bodies a rainbow of colors and shapes. Blue-skinned sat beside armored. Slender whispered to each other in their musical language. Species that could not even name watched from the upper levels, their alien eyes reflecting the bright lights of the arena. Sat alone in the lower stands, watching the demonstrations with patient attention. For 3 hours, she had observed the best fighters in the academy show off their skills. Each performance was more impressive than the last. The champion cadet had just finished his demonstration. He was young for his species, maybe equivalent to a human in his early 20s, but he moved like water given form. His 4 arms worked in perfect harmony, striking and blocking and weaving patterns in the air that were almost too fast to follow. When he fought the training drone, he destroyed it in less than 10 seconds. The crowd had cheered for him. They had chanted his name. He was their golden boy, their proof that the academy produced only the finest warriors. Now he sat in the stands with his admirers, accepting their praise with practiced humility. Noticed that he glanced in her direction several times. Each time, his expression carried the same mixture of confusion and contempt. Why was the human here? What could she possibly demonstrate? Knew the questions running through his mind. They were the same questions running through everyone's minds. You are nervous. The voice came from beside her, turned to find it taking the seat next to her. The alien was female, with large dark eyes and skin that shimmered faintly silver in the arena lights. Her movements were graceful, almost floating, and her presence carried a strange calmness that could feel against her mind. You are the telepath from my tactics class, said Cadet. Yes, settled into her seat, folding her thin legs beneath her. I have been watching you since you arrived. You are interesting. I am the only human. That makes me interesting by default. No's dark eyes studied her. It is not that. When I observe others, I sense their surface thoughts, their emotions, their fears. With you, I sense something different, a depth that I cannot read. She tilted her head. What are you planning to do down there? Looked at the arena. The announcer was introducing the next demonstration, a weapons display. Something stupid, probably. That is not an answer. It is the only one I have. Was silent for a moment. Then she made a sound that might have been laughter. I think I like you, human. Whatever happens down there, I hope you survive it. That makes 2 of us. The demonstrations continued. A cadet showed off his natural armor by allowing other cadets to strike him with training weapons. The blows bounced off his exoskeleton like rain off stone. A pair demonstrated their precognitive combat style, dodging attacks before they were thrown, countering strikes before they were made. It was beautiful and terrifying and completely inhuman. Finally, the announcer's voice echoed through the hall. Our final demonstration of the evening is unusual. Specialist of Earth has requested to perform a defensive technique display. She will be engaging training Drone 7 at maximum combat settings. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Training Drone 7 was the most powerful machine in the Academy's arsenal. It was designed to test the limits of armored species like the... Most cadets never faced it, even in their final year. And the human was going to fight it. She felt thousands of eyes tracking her as she walked down the stairs toward the arena floor. The whispers grew louder with each step. Is she insane? That drone will kill her. Someone should stop this. Let her try. It will be educational. Reached the arena floor and walked to the center of the ring. The lights above her were bright and hot. The air smelled of metal and sweat and something electric. Across from her, training Drone 7 waited in its charging station, a sphere of dark metal bristling with striking arms designed to shatter stone. Instructor stood at the edge of the arena, his compound eye fixed on her with an expression she could not read. Specialist, he said, his voice amplified for the crowd. You understand what you are attempting. This drone is calibrated for maximum force. A single strike could cause serious injury or death. I understand, instructor. And you wish to proceed anyway? Yes, sir. Was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Very well, you will have one opportunity to demonstrate your technique. The drone will execute a single strike at full power. You must defend yourself using only your body. No weapons, no armor, no external assistance. He paused. Are you ready? Rolled her shoulders. She shook out her arms. She planted her bare feet against the arena floor and felt its solid surface beneath her toes. Then she settled into a stance that she had practiced 10,000 times. It was a basic defensive position from MAGA, modified with elements from a dozen other martial arts. Low center of gravity. Weight distributed evenly. One arm raised, forearm angled to intercept incoming force. Every muscle in her body aligned to absorb and redirect impact. In the stands leaned forward. Beside him, his companions muttered in confusion. What is she doing? She cannot possibly think she can block that drone with her bare arm. Humans are delusional. Their bones will shatter like glass. This is going to be a massacre. Said nothing. He was watching Stance, the way her body was positioned, the tension in her muscles. Something about it seemed wrong, not wrong like a mistake, wrong like a surprise waiting to happen. Activate the drone, instructor commanded. Training drone 7 hummed to life. Its sensors locked onto. Its primary striking arm extended, hydraulic pistons gleaming under the arena lights. The arm was designed to deliver approximately 4,000 newtons of force, enough to dent starship hull plating, enough to crack armor. Enough to kill a human instantly. The drone calculated, the drone aimed. The drone struck. The arm shot forward at a speed that most species could not even perceive. A blur of metal and force, aimed directly at its raised forearm. In that moment, did not think. Thinking was too slow. Instead, she let her body do what it had been trained to do since she was 6 years old. She let 300,000 years of evolution take over. She let the instincts of a species that had survived ice ages and predators and wars and plagues guide her movement. Her forearm met the drone's strike. And the world changed. The sound was impossible. Every cadet in the exhibition hall expected to hear the wet crack of breaking bone. They expected to see the human collapse, her arm shattered, her body crumpled on the arena floor. They expected blood and screaming and the rushed arrival of medical staff. Instead, they heard thunder. A deep, resonant boom echoed through the arena like a bomb had exploded. The sound was so loud and so unexpected that several cadets in the front rows covered their ears. The arena lights flickered. Dust fell from the ceiling. And had not moved. She stood exactly where she had been standing, her feet planted, her arm raised. The drone's striking arm was pressed against her forearm, its hydraulic systems whining in confusion. Sensors in the machine were registering impossible data. The target had not yielded. The target had not broken. The target had somehow absorbed the full force of the impact. But if the force had not gone into, where had it gone? The answer was beneath her feet. Fractures spread outward from where she stood like a spiderweb made of broken stone. The arena floor, built from reinforced composite material designed to withstand starship landing struts, had cracked and split under the redirected force. Chunks of flooring had lifted slightly, edges sharp and jagged. A circle of destruction nearly 3 meters wide surrounded its bare feet. She had not moved. The floor had. Silence filled the exhibition hall. Thousands of cadets sat frozen in their seats, unable to process what they had just witnessed. Instructors stood with their mouths open. Even instructor, who had seen more combat than most beings could imagine, seemed stunned into stillness. Lowered her arms slowly. She looked down at the fractured floor, then up at the silent crowd. Her expression was calm, almost peaceful. There was no arrogance in her eyes, no triumph, only quiet certainty. That, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the silent arena, is what humans are. She stepped back from the damaged section of flooring. Her feet crunched on broken composite. Behind her, Training Drone 7 had automatically powered down, its systems struggling to reconcile the impossible data it had collected. You look at us and you see weakness, continued. You see thin skin and soft flesh and bones that seem fragile compared to armor. You see a species with no claws, no telepathy, no natural weapons, and you think we are prey. She walked in a slow circle, making eye contact with cadets in every section of the stands. You are wrong. Humans evolved on a world that tried to kill us every single day. Our home planet has temperatures that range from -90 degrees to +60 degrees. We have deserts where nothing can survive and oceans that can crush steel at their depths. We have predators with claws and teeth and venom. We have diseases and disasters and 1,000 different ways to die. Her voice grew stronger. And we survived all of it, not because we were the fastest or the strongest or the most heavily armored. We survived because we refused to break. Because every time the universe knocked us down, we got back up. Because somewhere in our DNA, there is a message that has been passed down through 300,000 years of struggle. She stopped in the center of the arena, standing in the middle of the fractured floor. The message is simple: do not quit, do not surrender, do not die until you absolutely must. In the stands, was leaning so far forward that he was almost falling out of his seat. His 4 hands were gripping the railing in front of him. His golden eyes were wide with something that might have been shock or fear or fascination. Our bodies are not weak, said. They are efficient. Every part of us is designed to endure. Our muscles can work for hours without stopping. Our hearts can beat for 100 years without rest. Our minds can adapt to any environment, any challenge, any pain. She raised her arm, the same arm that had blocked the drone's strike. There was no bruise, no swelling, just smooth brown skin over dense muscle and bone that had been forged in Earth's heavy gravity. When you hit us, we do not break. We absorb, we redirect. We transform your force into our strength. She gestured at the fractured floor. That energy had to go somewhere. I sent it into the ground. A human martial artist has been doing this for thousands of years. We call it rooting, grounding, becoming one with the earth beneath us. Instructor finally found his voice. Specialist, how? How is this possible? Turned to face him. Instructor, my species spent learning how to fight things bigger and stronger than us. We hunted mammoths with wooden spears. We killed bears with our bare hands. We survived ice ages by refusing to accept that survival was impossible. She walked toward him, her bare feet leaving prints in the debris. You asked me to demonstrate what humans can do. This is what we can do. We take punishment that would kill other species and we keep going. We face enemies that should terrify us and we fight anyway. We look at impossible odds and we find a way to win. She stopped in front of and looked up at his face. I have submitted 37 sparring requests since I arrived at this academy. All of them were declined because the other cadets were afraid of hurting me. She smiled, and there was something fierce in it. I think we can agree that fear was misplaced. Was silent for a long moment. Then his mandibles clicked in what had learned was laughter. Yes, Specialist, I think we can. He turned to address the crowd, his voice amplified throughout the arena. What you have witnessed today is not a trick. It is not a performance. It is a demonstration of human combat capability that matches or exceeds the classified reports in our military archives. He paused. I am officially declaring Specialist cleared for full sparring privileges. Any cadet who wishes to challenge her may do so through standard protocols. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, saw expressions changing in the stands, confusion giving way to curiosity, fear giving way to respect, dismissal giving way to interest. She had done it, she had made them see. But as she walked out of the arena, her legs trembling slightly from the adrenaline finally wearing off. She knew that this was only the beginning. She had proven that humans were not weak. Now she had to prove that humans could be allies, partners, friends. One sparring match at a time. The morning after the exhibition woke before the twin suns rose. Her body ached in places she had forgotten existed. The demonstration had taken more out of her than she had shown. Redirecting that much force without breaking required every muscle in her body to work together perfectly. She had trained for years to make it look effortless. Nothing about it had been effortless. She dressed in her training uniform and made her way to the combat gymnasium. The corridors of the academy were quiet at this hour. Most cadets were still sleeping, recovering from the excitement of the exhibition night. Preferred it this way. The silence gave her room to think. She pushed open the gymnasium door, expecting the same empty space that had greeted her every morning for 3 weeks. The gymnasium was not empty. Cadet stood in the center of the primary sparring ring. His 4 arms were crossed over his chest, and his golden eyes tracked movement as she entered. Behind him, arranged in a loose semicircle, stood a dozen other cadets, species that had ignored her for weeks. They were not ignoring her now. Stopped just inside the door. Her heart rate increased slightly, but she kept her expression neutral. She had learned to control her visible reactions a long time ago. Specialist's voice was formal, stripped of the contempt it had carried in previous weeks. I hope we are not intruding on your training time. This is a shared facility, replied. You have as much right to be here as I do. His mandibles twitched. Among them, it was an expression of discomfort. Yes, we do. That is something I should have remembered before. He uncrossed his arms and stepped forward. I owe you an apology. Said nothing, she waited. When you arrived at this academy, I saw you as a curiosity, a political gesture. I did not believe that humans belonged here, training alongside species that had been perfecting combat for thousands of years. Paused. I was arrogant. I judged you based on what I expected to see, not what was actually there. You were not alone in that judgment, said. No, I was not, gestured at the cadets behind him. We have spent the night talking, reviewing footage from your demonstration, consulting with academy physicians about human physiology. He shook his head slowly. The things we learned were humbling. One of the cadets stepped forward. His exoskeleton was dark green, marked with the patterns of a noble family. Your species has a documented pain tolerance that exceeds ours by nearly 40%. Your endurance capacity is unmatched by any known species in the coalition, and your psychological resilience under stress is terrifying, finished a cadet, recognized her, from the exhibition stands. I tried to read your surface thoughts during the demonstration. When that drone struck you, I expected to sense fear or pain or panic. Instead, I sensed nothing but calm focus. Your mind was completely still. Shrugged slightly. We learned to control our fear. On Earth, showing fear often made you a target. Predators hunted the weak and the scared. So we learned to hide those reactions, to push them down, to keep fighting no matter what we felt inside. The cadets exchanged glances. In their own ways, they had all underestimated humans. They had looked at the lack of natural weapons and seen weakness. They had not understood that the absence of those weapons had forced humans to develop something else, something harder to see but just as dangerous. Will, determination, the absolute refusal to surrender. Stepped aside and gestured toward the sparring ring. I came here this morning to request a match, formally, through proper channels. He reached into his training vest and produced a data pad. I have already submitted the paperwork. If you accept, we can begin immediately. Looked at the sparring ring, then at the line of cadets waiting behind him. And the others. They are also here to request matches. His golden eyes met hers. We understand if you decline. We have not exactly been welcoming since you arrived, but we are hoping that you will give us a chance to correct that mistake." For a long moment did not speak. She thought about the past 3 weeks, the declined requests, the empty gymnasium, the whispers and stares and assumptions. She thought about her grandmother's words about being underestimated. She thought about what it would mean to have allies instead of observers, partners instead of obstacles, friends instead of strangers. "I do not decline," she said finally. "I adapt." She walked toward the sparring ring. Her bare feet were silent on the gymnasium floor, watched her approach with something new in his expression. Respect, yes, but also curiosity, anticipation, the excitement of facing a worthy opponent. Stepped into the ring and settled into a ready stance. It was loose and relaxed, nothing like the grounded position she had used in the demonstration. This was not about absorbing force. This was about movement and reaction and finding the gaps in her opponent's defense. Entered the ring from the opposite side. His forearms spread wide, settling into the combat stance that he had demonstrated at the exhibition. His movements were fluid and graceful. "Rules?" he asked. "Standard Academy sparring protocol. First to 3 clean strikes wins. No permanent damage." "Agreed." His mandibles clicked with something that might have been a smile. "I should warn you, I have not lost a sparring match in 2 years." Smiled back. "I should warn you, humans do not fight fair, we fight to win." The signal chimed. The match began. Attacked first, all 4 arms moving in complex patterns designed to overwhelm his opponent's defenses. He was fast, faster than anyone had faced before. His strikes came from angles that should have been impossible to block. But did not try to block, she moved. She ducked under one arm, pivoted away from another, deflected a third with a subtle redirect that sent it past her ear by centimeters. Her body flowed like water around his attacks, never meeting force with force, always finding the empty spaces. And then she counterattacked. Her fist connected with his chest before he realized she had moved, not hard enough to hurt, but hard enough to count. The referee drone registered the strike. 1-0, said. His eyes widened. Then he laughed, a genuine sound of delight. "You are fast, much faster than your size suggests. We are full of surprises." They reset. The match continued. In the end, 1-3-2. It was close, closer than she had expected, was genuinely skilled, and his 4 arms gave him options that she had to work hard to counter, but she had fought opponents with advantages before. She had learned to find their weaknesses, exploit their assumptions, turn their strengths against them. When the match ended, extended one of his hands, a gesture of respect that crossed species barriers. Took it. "Thank you for the match," said. "I learned more in these 10 minutes than I have in months of training." "So did I," released his hand and looked at the line of cadets still waiting, caught her eye and smiled. The cadet was already warming up, his armored limbs moving through defensive forms. "Who was next?" asked. For the rest of the morning she sparred, match after match after match. She won some and lost some. Each fight taught her something new about her opponents and about herself. By the time the twin suns reached their peak, she had fought 12 different cadets from 8 different species. And for the first time since arriving at the academy, she did not feel alone. Weeks later, the academy administrators would notice an unusual trend in the training records. Human cadets, the few who would follow in later years, consistently ranked among the top combat performers, not because they were the strongest or the fastest, but because they approached every fight with a philosophy that no other species truly understood. They called it the human paradox, a species so physically unremarkable that they had been forced to become remarkable in every other way. And in the combat gymnasium, a section of fractured flooring was preserved under glass, with a small plaque that read simply, "She did not move, the floor did." It became a legend, a reminder, a promise. Humans were here. and they were not going anywhere.